In a nutshell, about literature with Joseph Pearce.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Franczak and this is part 36 of In a Nutshell about literature with Joseph Pearce. We are continuing our conversation about Romeo and Juliet. And if you would like to find out more about this famous play, I strongly encourage you to read Joseph's book Shakespeare on Love, Finding the Catholic Presence in Romeo and Juliet. The book was published by Ignatius Press. After discussing Romeo's attitude to love and previous relationship with Rosaline, we are now turning our attention to Juliet and her surprisingly young age. She's just a child. Why did Shakespeare make her so young? Returning to the topic of the age of Juliet, so we know that she was not 14 yet, right? So she was very young. You mentioned that actually Shakespeare made her younger than the source he used. And also, I don't know if it is perceived in English because Juliet, it is a diminutive form of Julia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So actually, when I'm thinking about it, I suppose that in foreign translations, maybe it also should be the diminutive form of this name to indicate that it was a very, very young girl, actually, right?
Yeah.
And why is it important? Because I have a quote from your book that the consensus in Elizabethan England was that marriage before 16 was dangerous. In consequence, 18 was considered the earliest reasonable age for motherhood, and the ideal ages for men and women to marry were considered to be 30 and 20 respectively. 30, this is quite a surprise to me, by the way. And later you quote an opinion that for Shakespeare's audience, Juliet's age must have been a shock. And I think that this is quite contrary to the popular opinion that in the past women got married quite early.
Yeah, and of course, I think that is certainly true in certain cultures at certain times. It's likely the Blessed Virgin Mary was fairly young when she was betrothed to St. Joseph. So there's certain cultures it's true, but the point is, and I was told when I was first taught Romeo and Juliet at high school, oh yeah, it was very common for people to be getting married at that sort of age in those days. Well, the point is, it wasn't, and I'm very grateful to some good, solid historians who have resorted to some good, solid historical research. So one of the people I quote in my introduction to the play in the Ignatius Critical Edition, Franczak, his name is, he looked at, I can't remember how many now, but hundreds of marriage certificates in the late 1590s. In other words, exactly at the time that Shakespeare's writing Romeo and Juliet. And marriages under the age of 18 are extremely rare. Under the age of 16, just unknown. And the average age for a woman to marry was about 21 to 23. The average age for a man was several years older than that, so 25 to 27. This was the culture in which Shakespeare wrote this. So irrespective of if some cultures, sometimes that women have got married younger, it's not true of Tudor England. It's not true of Shakespeare's culture. Not true of Shakespeare's audience. And also, many people, this is basically evidence we have over the last 100 years. that because of nutrition and other reasons that the women have reached sexual maturity, puberty, at a younger age. We've monitored that, just in the space of the last, let's say century or so, that the age of puberty has come down, and we put that down to things such as nutrition, right? Now, well, if that's the case, then a 13-year-old in Shakespeare's time would have seemed younger than a 13-year-old today. So, there's no real doubt that Shakespeare's audience and Shakespeare himself, and the other thing I make clear, Shakespeare's own daughter was actually this age when he wrote the play. So this has actually been written by the father of a 13-year-old girl, by someone's father, someone's Juliet's, of a daughter of someone's Juliet's age. So that's also very significant. But she would have been seen by the audience as a child. Now, if she's old enough and precocious enough and beginning to get the sexual feelings and desires that allow her, if you like, to be seduced and manipulated, the modern word would be groomed, right? And so that's the scary thing about it. And again, Shakespeare, perhaps as the father of a 13-year-old daughter, was aware of this. And so would his audience have been. But we're talking really about a child who's approaching puberty, beginning to have these sorts of feelings. And then you've got this man, several years older, who is already in the opening act of the play shown himself to be a stalker, whose unwanted attentions are got rid of by the woman. I mean, this is the track record of the man who's now let loose on this 13-year-old child.
And besides, like rereading this play, I noticed that the age, Juliet's age, is mentioned a few times in the play, like, I don't know, to indicate how young she was, and also her father talks about it, because there is you mentioned it in your book that he pointed out that somebody, I don't remember right now who, said that girls of her age get already married, and he said that actually, and because of that, they end badly in the sense that they are spoiled, and he uses the word marred, yes. And
too soon marred, or those so early made, I think is the quote.
Yes, and then her mother, I think, mentions her age too. There is this exchange between her mother and her nurse, and although her mother said that she got pregnant, I think, when she was more or less the same age as Juliet, right?
Well, in a vague sense, yes. But actually, what's very interesting is because when you're speaking, I made me think about this. I hadn't really thought about this before. How often does Shakespeare make such a thing about the age of a character? I mean, at the moment, I'm struggling to think of somewhere else where the age of the character is such an issue, where he makes a point of pointing it out. And again, by comparison, if that's the case, then the fact that he's making this, emphasizing this fact, is something we are meant to be paying attention to.
Yes. So this is what I noticed, and I can imagine that, like, if this play is staged nowadays, so maybe Juliet's character should be played by a very, very, really young girl, practically a child, to shock the audience. Actually, I think, yes, because
there are certain things that are necessary that change, but that's the problem. Is as you know, Jan, directors can completely change the meaning of a play without changing any of the words. So I mentioned, I think, in our discussion of Merchant of Venice, and my seeing a production of the play in England, where all the Christian characters were skinheads who said the same words, but the way they said them were aggressive. In between the lines, they were spitting and kicking, right? The whole meaning of the play is altered, right? If you make Juliet the same age as Romeo And, someone who's feisty, like Rosaline, but not like Juliet, right? Someone who's feisty, who gives as good as she gets, right? Who's knowledgeable of the world, who probably isn't a virgin, right? Or certainly doesn't want to be. Then you've changed the whole meaning and the whole dynamic of the play. You've basically destroyed it. You've ruined it without necessarily changing a single word. That's the damage that a bad director or a bad producer can do to the play.
By the way, that's interesting that even in our times, which is obsessed with sexuality and so on, putting a very young girl, practically a child, in this role would be shocking. Yes, still would be shocking for a lot of people, and people watching this play in a movie or in the theater are even not aware of that.
Yeah, and as regards relevance, a great work of art is always relevant anyway. But let's say newsworthy. As C.S. Lewis says, that fashion's always coming and going, but mostly going. And there's nothing more out of date than yesterday's newspaper. But something that's newsworthy, such as in England, with the Pakistani grooming gangs. Right, and if you read about that, but that there are hundreds of underage girls were basically abducted and abused, and if the play were produced in England today, in the form in which Shakespeare wrote it, it would be horrifically shocking, as it was in Shakespeare's time. It has to be a realistic reenactment and resurrection of what Shakespeare was intending with the play, and ironically, even in our sexually licentious culture, that would probably be too shocking and horrific for people to deal with.
Exactly,
because of the reality of what's happening.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. If you haven't seen the previous episodes yet, please check the In a Nutshell About Literature with Joseph Pearce playlist. You can watch them individually or as 5 longer compilation videos. And please remember, you can support the development of this channel in several ways. Subscribe to the channel, like this video and leave a comment. Share the video by copying the link and posting it on our social media. Support us financially by buying me a virtual cup of coffee or making a donation. Please check the options below the video, where you'll find links to 2 services, Buy Coffee Too and Zrzutka. Thank you once again, and see you soon in the next episodes of In a Nutshell About Literature with Joseph Pearce. God bless you.